me, Ms. Renata?
I got you now. Yes, ma'am. Sparkle.
Ms. Renata?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you. Are you there?
Okay, good.
Yes.
I am.
I just got off the road.
I was just riding down Chamberlain and saw Sparkle on Chamberlain.
What? I hope she got a phone with her.
I hope she does too.
Because I'm sending them a text message and saying that, sorry, I had put 12 noon, but it's actually 1. It's 1 o'clock, we're on.
And if they can't, you know, because I don't know, like, you know, just with the confusion, you know, I'll meet them out there later on this week.
Yeah.
I am going out there on Wednesday afternoon. And, you know, to get pictures and that kind of stuff.
Right. I do know Nikki's going to be on there because Nikki did call me. So she she texted me. She's going to be on.
And I talked to Brandon yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, this is no big fat hairy deal, you know, as long as, you know, because it don't even have to be that Nick and Brandon coming in now. So it's just maybe, so I'm just going to send this text message to Sparkle and Shanika. And if they miss, that's fine, you know. Hello. Yeah. Can you hear us, Nikki?
Yep.
Okay, there they are.
Hey, how y'all doing today?
Wonderful.
Awesome, awesome. How are those tomato plants looking?
Oh my goodness, I think mine just grew a couple of inches, especially after that rain.
Okay, you had it sitting outside. Yes, they love rain.
Yes.
They love it, love it.
Somebody else is coming in now. Oh, there's Sparkle.
Hey, Miss Sparkle, I just saw you on Chamberlain not too long ago.
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. So we're waiting for Shanika and we're good to go. But if you want to get started, Kay, go right ahead.
Okay. This is week number 4, I'm sorry. And all right, thank you. I'm getting in the car. I'm actually headed over to the garden real quickly to take a couple of shots of what's happening this week. I'll also be there on Wednesday at 3 o'clock like we did last week. To get some photos and to go over what's new in the garden next week. But this week, we're just going to chat just briefly about the benefits of community gardening, in addition to learning the skills to grow your own food and to take care of the soil, because the soil is the source of nutrients. There also are some other benefits to community garden, and these benefits are the ones that we really have to protect, and the ones that we do protect every time we do this. Those benefits are social equity, which is equal access. In this case, is equal access to land. Richmond City had to pass laws and ordinances in order to make land available for community gardening. And they've done so under the name of providing equitable opportunities for people who don't necessarily own land, because it shouldn't be something that's only available to people who own land when there's just blank spots in the city and land that belongs to the city can be utilized for good purposes. So it's a benefit that doesn't just adhere to you all, it adheres to the entire community. So are any of you guys feeling, before I go too far into this, does anybody feel compelled to talk about what's going on in the city? I just started down that, and my whole thought process got cut off because of what's happening in the city, and a lot of that is about equity too. And I was just curious, before I get too deep into, you know, benefits of community gardening, I don't want to kind of skip over what's happening in life right now. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So does anybody like have any thoughts, comments, concerns about what's happening right now that they want to talk about and or address?
I personally, I come from a protest background. Considering communities that I've grown up in as a child in Brooklyn, activities that have taken place. I was a part of the Occupy Wall Street movement in New York, in Florida, in Chicago, and I've seen some ugly things on both sides, things that didn't need to happen. The things that I'm happy to see is that numbers are increasing and more people are feeling quick to mobilize about this situation. And I feel like that certain things that are happening should happen, but they're not happening in
Mm-hmm.
a way that makes sense. I remember, I don't remember offhand what city it was that I read about, but I read about one city that burnt down their city hall and overtook the courts. They're doing it right. They're not going after Dollar Tree or Kroger, which is where our families need to go to get food at their place. They're not going after the Children's Museum because what the fuck? That they never did anything to nobody. They're going after kids basically when you do some shit like that. And a lot of what has happened here in Richmond is sickening. You want to go after the monuments? They're ugly anyway. Go after the fucking monuments. I'm not even mad. But don't, that monument is also in the neighborhood of my children's schools. And I'm concerned about how things are affected over there. So I have a bit of a dual perspective because the last time I was an active protester, I was with the Occupy movement. I was a single woman with no kids. Things change a lot when you have children that can be affected by all this because they can be affected on every angle that I'm witnessing this from. My children can be negatively affected. So right now, the only thing that I'm thinking about is how to best protect them from this and from what they end up seeing and witnessing. Why did it happen? What are the speeches? What are the words in my head that I'm preparing myself to say to my very precocious 5-year-old who can have an adult conversation with an understanding, especially since I tell him what every word means anyway. You know what I mean? How can
Yeah.
I give this to him in a way that's honest and not sugarcoating, but also not scary to him? Something that makes sense. It's just the whole thing makes me sad. But my whole thing is this, and I felt this way ever since I was a teenager. You want to with or even 11 years old with Rodney King. That was my first big moment. Like, oh shit, they're trying to kill us. You know what I mean? When that happened,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw that video. My whole thing is, why do you keep going for the small stuff that didn't do anything but exist? They're not contributing to the problem. Go after the motherfuckers that are contributing the problem. Wipe out the fucking precincts, kill City Hall, whatever it takes. You go for the big stuff because it's the big stuff that's going to cripple everything if you take it down. And also, it's the source of the problem. Then again, it's a little bit different here. We have a mayor that, you know, done everything in its power to try to prevent things from what's happening right now from happening. It's just it's so much. It's not. There's no simple way of framing this.
I agree. I agree with you, Sparkle. Thank you very much, you know, for offering your perspective and your concerns. I agree with you that there is no simple way of taking this in or addressing it. And I think you're on the right track in terms of just looking at, well, what does this mean to my family? And how do I teach? How do I make this a teachable moment about the community that we live in? And so I'm going to tie it back to gardening and offer this to you as a pathway, because it's something that I remember doing with my daughter when she was very young. And scary things happen in communities over and over again. Children get shot. And I just remember there was a shooting and it was a child that got shot, and it scared my daughter all to heck. Because it, just like it looks like, wow, this can happen to children. And she didn't really understand, but I actually used that opportunity. We went to the river. You guys have a garden, and I took her and I showed her and I said, hey, this is a safe space in our community. And there are, in fact, it's okay, like you said, Sparkle, that this is happening, because there is, justice does involve some revolt. It does involve some protest. It does involve standing up for what's right when what's wrong is what's happening. And so I let her know that, hey, that's okay. And then I took her to a safe space and showed her that the world out here isn't just some great big unsafe thing. So hopefully that is a way that you guys can begin to think about that space that's near your home, versus what the rest of the city is. And, which brings me to the second benefit of community gardening, which is community safety. So there's some scientific evidence that says when you put a garden in a community, that it does in fact increase the likelihood that people will take care of that community. It does decrease crime, particularly violent crime. And so to that end, I would definitely hope that you guys utilize the resource that's there. And again, just emphasize that there are safe spaces for people, even with the turmoil that's going on, that your neighborhood is not affected. So what's being looted and all of that, what does Dollar Tree have to do with it? I heard that as part of what you had to say. Sparkle, I agree with you again wholeheartedly, but economic development and the lack of equity in it, I think is a source of frustration that has been around a long time. And, part of what we're seeing, I think, are reactions to the economic development environment in Virginia. Growing food represents not just, that safe space, not just an opportunity for social equity or access to land, but there are some economic development opportunities. And interestingly enough, the city of Richmond is looking to foster the food community, food businesses, and local food, the availability and affordability of local food. And, I think some of those types of messages, we don't want them to get lost because they're still relevant to think about and to talk about and to share with your family and your friends. And then, so land conservation, social equity, there's an environmental benefit just in putting more oxygen in the air. And I don't know about you guys, but after I left the garden last week, I felt great. Does anybody else feel great?
For a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes it only lasts a little while. You're right, Sparkle. Sometimes it only lasts a little while, which is why I try to do it every day.
Makes sense, yeah.
I try to get a little every day. But there is just this natural good feeling, that goes with spending time in a safe space, and focusing on your family's health and what's fair and what's right, and also taking in the environmental benefits of the breeze and the sun. So, so I would implore you guys, particularly in this time, to really take advantage of that, to really just, draw closer to your families and friends and those sources of goodness that come from nature, and giving yourself access to them, because it's going to help bring down the anxiety and help ward off depression. Because it's kind of depressing. And, you know, the times that we're living in can produce a lot of anxiety. But just reminding yourself that there's beauty in the world, that there's safety in the world, that there's goodness and wholesomeness right in your community. I just, again, ask that you really lean into that and focus on it as a way to steady your thoughts and not feel like it's all going to hell in a handbasket. There's definitely some growth. And you can see it in these little baby tomato plants that you guys have, and you can share it with your kids and stand in the sun. And the sun makes you grow too, by the way, not just plants. It makes you grow too. They say vitamin D is one of the keys for COVID-19. And, you know, again, that's sun, that's breeze. So there are lots of benefits to community gardening. The list of them is there's public health benefits from people having access to good food. There's economic development for businesses that use local and fresh food. Welcome to whoever just joined us. There's environmental benefits to gardening itself, and that the gardens and the trees add to the environment. There's social equity benefits by making sure that people can have access to land to farm or garden, even if they don't have a yard, if they live in an apartment. And lastly, there's land conservation benefits. Every square inch where we're growing food, there's not a factory producing pollution. There's not a source of environmental degradation. So we're conserving land also for future generations. I've often, there's a Dr. Seuss book, and then they made it into a movie where in the future, all of the trees are fake trees and plastic and what have you. And I'd hate to think that we're gonna get there. And so what you guys do in terms of introducing the next generation to the benefits of gardening, I think is gonna keep us in a place where there will always be a treasure, where the land will always be a source of treasure for us. So that's all that I had in terms of sharing the benefits of community gardening. I'm gonna be out there Wednesday at 4, I said 3, but 4 o'clock Wednesday to get some pictures and see what's new. You guys, please come out. I'll text you, before I head over there. I also have gloves and masks. So, to kind of address the lack thereof in case anybody forgets that or whatever. So please do come out and join me Wednesday at 4.
Okay.
Did anybody else have any benefit that I forgot to mention? Or, something else that you personally or you or your family are getting out of the experience gardening together that you wanted to share?
What about you, Nikki?
Not really much. That's the reason why I decided to join, because it is helping my anxiety, it's keeping me good, and it's keeping me to myself, being that the children is home because of this virus, and then stuff continues to trickle down and spike my depression and my anxiety. This whole thing is just it's like a sacrifice to me. I didn't want to talk about it, and I allowed y'all to continue to talk about, but this is my feelings on what has happened to that man and to the whole world, because I feel like the government knew exactly what they were doing, and they lined it all up for all of us to look at it as, oh, guess what? We have too many people in America, and we have to find ways to get them out. So what do we design? We designed this virus that's going to kill people. They knew it was going to kill people, and for it to travel the way it traveled. Families have died off of this virus. We don't know if most of America is in their homes right now and are dead in their homes because they had to go home with this virus. And then to turn around, you knew what was going to tip us over is attack our men. I have a son. My son is witnessing this. And the questions I'm not ready to answer, I'm forced to have to answer to them. History I have to put into my children right now, and they are looking at it like history has repeated itself all over again. And then to turn around, after they already killed this man in front of everybody, they got 3 more officers that's not even arrested. And all their Congress over there is talking about is, well, I did my job. I had enough evidence to fire, but you as police are not even looking at the fact that they are considered an accomplice. They were there. They witnessed it. They didn't do nothing about it. If we was to see someone steal something in the store and we get arrested for it because we seen it and didn't do nothing about it, I mean, this whole thing is crazy. And then the riots. I understand there are people out there wanting to be more Malcolm X's and more Martin Luther King's. I understand that. But then to turn around, you're in a crowd. This virus is still going on. You're in a crowd right now around people that could be affected. So then you're sick, and it continues on. We're not getting any healing anywhere. We're being surrounded by all this negativity, and I thank God I have a way out. I have my plants, yes, and that is where I put my energy into, as well as being a mother. But I hate the fact that as a mother, an African-American mother, a woman in America having to raise her little ones in this time. I'm pregnant, and I'm scared after death to bring this one in the world. So I'm sorry, this is just my pain. This is how I've been feeling since this whole chaos didn't happen. I'm afraid to have my children outside to catch anything because nobody wants to take advantage of covering yourself. And then they feel like, oh, the adults is in the house. So if we're affected in the house, our children will not get affected. There are children already around the world that got these rashes, the heat. They're having fevers for no reason. Our babies are still dying from this madness. So I'm sorry.
No.
All I have right now, the little bit of sanity I am trying to keep in mind is placing it on something that I didn't have that much of a heart about until I have my plants. I put all my plants in the front of my yard, even my poinsettia that I kept for a whole year. I go to the convention center every Thanksgiving. It's the time that I first moved out here, the time of my first coming out of being trapped for so long. And then to turn around, I still have that plant. And I was proud to put my plant out there 2 days ago for my neighbors to ask me, you really know you're into plants? I said, I'm a part of that garden over there. Feel free to come along over there. I sit over there to cry sometimes.
That's okay.
Turn around for my neighbors to be asking me questions about this. I'm proud about that. That's something outside of you talking to me about another Black man dying.
Nikki, that's I think I've been around you long enough to know you. And I sit on these meetings. Kay is our facilitator. And today, it was the spirit that told me to ask, Nikki, how you, because I could see
How
you
you doing?
on this screen, and I could see how you were working at what you were doing, and I couldn't see that smile. I said, is something going on? So I specifically, not because Sparkle spoke, Sparkle is our Sparkle.
Outspoken one.
Yes, but I could see, Nikki, that you were holding something in. And don't apologize. Don't be apologetic for what you're saying and how you are feeling. You have every right to feel what you feel. Every right. And this was necessary for you to absolutely explain and articulate
well, and it's
how
why
you
I
feel.
wanted to make the space. It's why I wanted to make the space to say, you know, I have kind of like a little prepared curriculum or what I'm wanting to share with you all, but I'd like to share it in the context of how you're doing today and how you're feeling, and give you some tools. So when I heard you say, you know, and I hear everyone saying the same thing, what do I say to my children? And as an older woman, you know, my daughter's grown now. I remember those moments of life and just not even knowing what to say. And that's why I offer to you, hey, take them babies outside. Show them, hey, there's a safe space here. There is growth still happening. God is still God. The sun is still shining.
Plants are therapeutic.
We're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I invite you to do that with those babies. And thank you again for sharing where you are and what a struggle it is, because you're not alone. You're not alone. My baby's grown, but she's still struggling with this. You know, I'm still trying to find ways to soothe her and to soothe myself and to sleep at night. You know, and the relationships that I have with nature, just this beautiful, giving, wonderful source of nutrients and life that reminds me that no matter what's going on, that growth is still here and possible. That's the best benefit of gardening and growing food that I've ever known. And I'm glad to be able to do that with you all and facilitate your involvement in it. So that's really, you know, our gift, you know, sharing today and having a space, having a safe space. So that's really all that I had to share. I'll see you guys at 4 if you're able to come out on Wednesday. Okay. And to your point, I do have masks and gloves for everyone.
Can you shoot me a text and remind me?
I sure will.
Thank you.
I sure will. Yeah, when I'm on my way, I'll shoot you guys a text that I'm on my way over there.
Okay.
All right, I'll see you later.
Bye. Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
Bye.
Peace and blessings. Bye.
Same. Be safe, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.